full season and break all their opponents. They will take the championship from the inept and give it back to you, the people of Oakland. The Raiders are the instrument of your liberation. I present to you the hosts of this radio show, Shawn Wally and Shawn Boyd.
Good evening, Raider Nation family. Welcome to another episode of Raider Nation Central on ProFootballCentral.com. Good evening once again. I am Shawn Boyd with my co-host Shawn Wally, also known as the Double S Express. Shawn Wally, how you doing today?
Raider Nation and Shawn Boyd, how are you? What's going on? We had an interesting night of football on Friday night. We'll get into that in a little bit. Lots going on in the world of football with mandatory cuts. Tomorrow, teams have to get down to 75, and a lot of them have already started to do that.
Definitely, before we get into everything, I must tell Raider Nation Central we are representing from Honolulu, Hawaii. Yours truly, sitting along the lavish beaches of Waikiki with the waves blowing in, the surf going out. Man, Mr. Wally, I have to tell you, I'm having a great time over here.
You know, I can hear the sighs, and Raider Nation is feeling for you right now, just like I am. My heart goes out to you. We're so sorry you're stuck in the middle of the ocean, and things are so dire for you at this moment as you're in paradise, Mr. Boyd.
Yeah, well, it's a much awaited vacation, being over here and definitely seeing the Raider Nation represented out here. There are lots of silver and black along the beaches as we walked along the boardwalk. I had to shake hands with them and let them know that, it's heartfelt, that I was excited to see Raider Nation over here in Honolulu.
Now, I don't think we've touched on it yet here on Raider Nation Central, but take a moment, if you would, Shawn, and tell everybody why you're in Hawaii for the very first time, and it's a great thing for you and your family.
Yeah, well, for those of you who don't know, my middle son is a basketball extraordinaire, and he's here on full ride scholarship, and so it's freshman orientation, and we had to get over here and see our son off, and so I'm definitely excited about the things that he's doing at Chaminade University. Some great things happening there. Of course, last year they upended Texas in the Maui Invitational, and a couple of years prior beating Oklahoma. So they're Big 12 bashers, to say the least. And so this year they will be playing against Baylor in the opening rounds of the Maui Invitational. And, of course, my son being a freshman, looking to do some great things. But, it is definitely a great time for the Boyd household, and we're excited for him.
And that would be Devon Boyd on the full ride basketball scholarship. And I believe school began today. Is that correct?
That is correct. School beginning for him today. Classes are hectic. I just talked with him a few minutes ago. He is pumped up and excited, but not as excited about Thursday. Of course, that's the first day of practice for him. And so he's definitely geeked up about that. And, excited about the team. There should be some good things happening.
Books and basketball for Devon Boyd. That's the schedule for success.
Definitely books and basketball, but shifting gears and getting back to what has been going on the past week, Shawn Wally, and that is some hectic times in Raider Nation as the world turns, if you will. It seemed like last week it was a lock for one Matt Flynn at the quarterback position. But, what a difference a week makes, Mr. Wally.
Yeah, it definitely is looking like there is just an unfortunate dark cloud that's following Matt Flynn out of Green Bay. He was penciled in as the starter in Seattle last season. That didn't work out for him. Traded, as everybody knows, to Oakland and penciled in there as the starter. And now things are starting to maybe turn the table again on him, as Terrell Pryor is the fans' choice.
Yeah, it's a lot like a political election out in Oakland as far as, who's going to win, who's the front runner, and then all of a sudden the race closes. Uh, Man, it just looks like something that is the same old hat as far as Matt Flynn is concerned. And what I mean by that is in Seattle, the old elbow started to get to him. And then just as that happened, Russell Wilson came in and grabbed the starting position. The same thing happening this year. And in your neck of the woods, Sean, while in the Pacific Northwest, one Warren Moon came out and talked about this issue today and said, hey, Matt Flynn is this easygoing guy that doesn't put in the work. So there's a huge question mark as far as the work ethic of Matt Flynn. And when you combine that with what Terrell Pryor is doing and what he's done in the offseason as far as being with Tom Brady's coach and, picking up some of the finer and fine-tuning himself as far as a football player, it looks like things are not looking well for Matt Flynn.
And he is not even going to play this week in the final preseason tune-up, as Terrell Pryor will get the start, and they'll go from there. But Matt Flynn apparently re-injuring that elbow, having arm problems, which is the same thing that happened last year in Seattle.
Yes, the exact same thing. And so you have to, if you're Matt Flynn, you have to be thinking, what in the world is going on here? Hey, fight for your job. I mean, you have RG3 that's over there in Washington, and, he was injured, but then, he didn't want Cousins to take over and take his position, and he fought for it. And, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, man, Matt Flynn, get up off of the mat and fight for your job. This is the second time that this is happening. And not only is this happening, but you have the Raider Nation booing you during the game. Step up and do something about it. But he's not, Sean, while he's staying on the mat, man, and it looks like Terrell Pryor is primed and ready to take not only the position this week as he starts against Seattle, but taking it over in week 1 against the Indianapolis Colts. And you have to wonder what's going to happen to Matt Flynn.
Well, that will be seen not only this week, but in the weeks ahead. And we've got a big show here on Raider Nation Central as we're going to preview the AFC West. We're going to talk to 3 guys that cover and write stories for the hated Denver Broncos, Kansas City Chiefs, and San Diego Chargers. And, of course, myself and Sean Boyd will give the Raiders' take on how this AFC West might shake out in 2013.
Definitely. And so when we come back from the break, we're going to take a quick break right here. The first guest that we have on the show today talking AFC will be none other than from the Denver Broncos, and that's Ayre Bedinger, coming back from the break. You're listening to Raiders Nation Central on Pro Football Central.
Football fans, check out the official t-shirt apparel shop for the Pro Football Central Radio Network. Check out bigfrog.com/Cincinnati. That's bigfrog.com/Cincinnati. You think it, we ink it. They have an awesome 24-hour turnaround time. You can also visit them at their fabulous store over at Anderson Town Center, 7426 Beachmont Avenue, Cincinnati, Ohio 45255. That's bigfrog.com/Cincinnati.
This is Michael Johnson.
This is David Nelson. This is Rob McClain.
This is Antonio Gray.
This is Antonio Brown.
Hi, this is Kyle Rudolph.
On the Pro Football Central Radio Network.
We're here.
Welcome back to this edition of Raider Nation Central on Pro Football Central. You have the Double S Express on, Sean Wally and Sean Boyd. We're talking AFC West on this episode of Raider Nation Central. We have our first guest on. It is again none other than Ayre Bedinger talking Denver Broncos. Ayre, how you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on the show, guys.
Hey, well, thanks for being on the show, man. Well, let's start out first things first. The Denver Broncos, 2-1 in the preseason. Peyton Manning doing a very good job as far as taking over the helm of the Denver Broncos in his second year. What's the sentiment in Broncos camp right now?
Well, the sentiment right now is really that the Broncos might be trying to do too much at one time. There's so many good things happening that the biggest problem is that they're going to try too hard when they really don't have to. They just need to let things kind of fall into place. But really, a lot of excitement. I mean, playmakers across the board. It kind of stinks to have the stories like Von Miller and Elvis Dumerville and the two front office members getting in trouble, Tom Heckert and Matt Russell. Those are kind of a dark cloud over an otherwise really productive offseason for the Broncos. But really, the feeling is as long as number 18 takes the field, that's going to be a Super Bowl caliber team. Up and down, the roster's looking great. So the vibes are really positive, even with the bad news coming in.
Yeah, so you've mentioned some of the off-field activities, of course, with Elvis Dumerville and Von Miller. There are some other things that are going on right now, yet the Broncos are winning football games right now. What I'm talking about is the running back position. You have Ronnie Hillman that is supposed to be the starting running back. I mean, this is his job to have. And, he's fumbled the ball twice in successions in games. One against Seattle, 100 yards run back. The other one, St. Louis. And then there's no Sean Marino. So what's the vibe going on in Denver as far as the running back situation?
Well, Monte Ball took over the first team spot today at practice. As far as all reports are concerned, John Fox said not to read too much into it because it's just practice, but I think the writing's been on the wall ever since the team used their second-round pick on Monte Ball, that they plan to have him be the featured back. He was working with the first team from the minute he stepped into minicamp, his rookie minicamp, and when the veterans came in, he was working with the starters, flipping back and forth with Ronnie Hillman. Really right now, and going back to last season, the Broncos' best, most proven back is still no Sean Marino. And he proved that against the Rams on Saturday night. He was running hard. He was showing his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. And I think Monte Ball is going to eventually take over that number one spot as kind of the back that can do everything. But Hillman will get there. He's just, right now, he's not quite ready to be a featured back. So I think he'll eventually be the third back, with Noah Khan as the number two, and then Monte Ball will be the number one back as everything kind of plays out as the season progresses.
Sayre, how do you think the wide receivers are going to handle the fact that Peyton Manning only has one football to throw, and you've got a lot of quality receivers, most notably the addition of Wes Welker, adding to the Ayre Bedingers of the world, the Demaryius Thomas. Is there enough football to go around?
Well, we got a little taste of that on Saturday. Even without Welker on the field, Peyton Manning threw 34 passes in the first half of a preseason game. So it's pretty clear that the Broncos want to run a lot of plays, and they intend to pass the ball a lot. Peyton Manning is as healthy as he's been since his days in Indianapolis. He's looking great. His arm looks a lot even stronger than it was at the end of last year. His mind is looking as sharp as ever. He's definitely not lost a step, and I think the receivers are going to love it, especially guys like Ayre Bedinger, because Demaryius Thomas, undoubtedly the Broncos' most talented receiver, is going to see he's going to see a double team, and if not him, Welker will see a double team, and somebody's going to have to leave one of those guys one-on-one coverage, and we all know the story of Decker and Demaryius, their size, their speed, their physicality, and then Welker underneath is usually quicker than the guy standing across from him. So you add in the fact that the Broncos have at least three guys from the tight end position who can make plays with the emergence of Julius Thomas this offseason, and it's looking really good. Basically, their job is just to not make mistakes, and that's why Hillman's been under the bus, because he made mistakes. And so I think the Broncos receivers will really love all playing together, being able to feed off each other and take advantage of which one's not getting double teamed and things like that.
Staying on the offensive side of the ball, a name you just mentioned, tight end Julius Thomas, a rookie coming in. He seems to be a great addition to the offense and a guy that could be a sleeper in terms of not only helping out the offense and Peyton Manning, but for fantasy football as well.
Yeah, Julius came in with the first draft class in John Elway's tenure with Denver. He was the Broncos traded up in the 4th round to get him back in 2011, the draft that produced Von Miller and Raheem Moore and guys like that. And the Broncos were really excited about him back then. I remember going to training camp that summer and thinking, man, this guy's huge and he's catching everything thrown his way. But unfortunately, the last couple of years, injuries have just derailed his career. And there were a lot of people who thought he might be on the roster bubble heading into this offseason, but he came out at OTAs and training camp and was really consistent. Actually kind of took over that number 1 spot as Joel Dreesen and Jacob Tamme both went down with injuries and missed quite a long period of time. And that really allowed Julius Thomas to build chemistry with Manning, and he's ended up doing a great job in the preseason. Still a lot of minor things to work out in the blocking game, and he had a fumble against Seattle on a long reception, and those things won't be tolerated. And they're things that you didn't see from guys like Tamme and Dreesen last year, who are reliable playmakers for that Bronco offense. And so Julius is still going to have to earn his stripes, but certainly a former basketball player, very athletic, very strong, great hands, can do a lot for you as an inline tight end, or could split out wide with his speed and athletic ability and play some receiver. The Broncos got him involved in the screen game on Saturday, so a lot of versatility with him as an offensive weapon.
For those of you just tuning in, we have Ayre Bedinger, beat writer for the Bleacher Report for the Denver Broncos. Hey, Ayre, just a quick question here, and for those of you just tuning in again, we are talking Raiders football. We're just talking AFC West right now. So, with the season coming up, and of course the AFC West being oh so tough between, the Broncos, the Raiders, Chargers, the Chiefs, what's your prediction record-wise for the Denver Broncos, and how do you think the rest of the teams will fare?
Well, I think this is a Super Bowl or bust year for Denver. They definitely have, in my opinion, one of the top 2 or 3 most talented rosters in the NFL. Right out there with teams like Seattle and San Francisco. And I think they're the class of the AFC this year. I mean, you can never count out a guy like Tom Brady, no matter who he's got to throw passes to and no matter who he's handing the ball to. But this Broncos team is probably the best that they've ever had, even going back to the days of, you can look at that team with Elway and Terrell Davis and Rod Smith and McCaffrey. You've got, in my opinion, at least 2 Hall of Famers on that team. Terrell Davis should get in there, but this Broncos team led by Manning just has so much depth, so much talent. Those Super Bowl teams didn't have a ton of notable defenders, but you look at this Broncos roster with guys like Champ Bailey, Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie, Von Miller, so many guys who can help your team on that defense and make plays, and that's what they did last year. That's what they'll do this year. I think that's the goal. I could see anywhere from 11 to maybe 14 wins for them. Chiefs I look at as a potential wild card team. They're very talented, but obviously underachieving, and I think they made huge upgrades at the 2 most key positions in any NFL roster, head coach and quarterback. They made 2 big moves, 2 upgrades. So I actually think the Chiefs are a pretty solid team, maybe 8-9 wins. Then I think San Diego will probably wind up 3rd place, transitioning to a new head coach, a lot of injuries to deal with. Phillip Rivers still doesn't have a great line protecting him. I could see 7 wins for them. And then Oakland, unfortunately, is in a really tough spot. They're rebuilding. They don't have stability at the quarterback position. They don't have a real star on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, Darren McFadden is probably their most talented player, but he's not really a reliable asset in terms of being able to stay healthy. And then I actually think Terrell Pryor gives them the best chance to at least compete in the long term, because he's a great athlete. He's got a ton of upside. And I just don't think Matt Flynn has that. I don't think he offers any real upside to that team. So I could see Oakland contending for the number 1 pick this year. Their roster isn't that great. There's a lot of youth.
So, Sarah, thank you for that information. Of course, you know that you probably didn't make too many friends with the Raider Nation, but, you know, it is what it is. The Broncos, 11 of 14 wins. That is the prediction from Ayre Bedinger, beat writer for the Bleacher Report and for the Denver Broncos. We're going to take a quick break, and when we return, we will have guest number 2, and that will be none other than the Kansas City Chiefs, BJ Kissel. You're listening to Raider Nation Central on Pro Football Central.
Football fans, check out ProFootballCentral.com for all the latest NFL news and analysis. Also, check out the very popular Pro Football Central radio network for awesome NFL talk around the league. Go to ProFootballCentral.com. ProFootballCentral.com.
Cigar fans, check out FifthDownCigar.com and enter the coupon code PFC to get 10% off your order. Lots of nice high-end cigars. That's FifthDownCigar.com. Enter the code PFC for 10% off your order.
Welcome back to Raider Nation Central Radio on ProFootballCentral.com with the Double S Express, Sean Wally and Sean Boyd. Let's head out now to the Bonita Platinum phone lines and bring in writer for Bleacher Report for the Kansas City Chiefs, BJ Kissel. BJ, how you doing tonight?
Pretty good. How you guys doing?
Good, good. Hey, thanks for being on the show, BJ. Ready to talk Chiefs.
Hey, I'm excited. I'll talk Chiefs any day, all day.
Well, good, good. And so, the segment is AFC West. We're talking to AFC West. We just had Ayre Bedinger on earlier with the Denver Broncos, writer for the Denver Broncos. Kansas City Chiefs right now 1-2 in the preseason, getting off to a shaky start, but actually riding the ship the last game. And let's talk about Alex Smith. What's it like? What's the camp talk about Alex Smith? Is he going to bring better wins or a better season to Kansas City this year?
That's a great question. I think a lot of it depends. Obviously, Alex Smith is one of the guys who's talked about by everybody. And I think that when you got to kind of look at it in the realm of what Chiefs fans are used to. And that's why I think I've had this conversation several different times where Alex Smith is a fantastically average quarterback. But based on what the Chiefs have seen over the last few years in Kansas City, when you see a quarterback go out and throw an accurate, 3-yard, slant pass or drag route across the middle, all of a sudden you say, hey, we've got a pretty good quarterback because their standards have dropped so much. Because we haven't seen a quarterback in Kansas City for the last 3 years that can accurately throw the underneath passes. Not expecting him to make, huge passes down the field. But I think a lot of the buzz around Alex Smith is he comes in, he picked up the offense very quickly, he picked up Andy Reid's philosophy very quickly, and it was a very quick tempo practice and I went up to camp 4 different days, and it was one of the things that everybody up there was talking about is how quickly the offense was working. They were doing no huddle all through camp, and that your quarterback has to feel comfortable in the offense to be able to do that. And I think a lot of the buzz about Alex Smith in camp was just how quickly he kind of led the offense, especially coming in his first year. And then so far what we've seen in the preseason, a lot of what you would expect, a lot of short passes, but they're accurate, so it is moving in the right direction. Who knows till the season starts what it's going to end up looking like in the regular season.
Yeah, from what it looks like he's very comfortable in the pocket and very comfortable in running the offense from Doug Peterson. The biggest thing is of course, having A.J. Jenkins, I think, coming over from San Francisco in that weird trade that Kansas City and San Francisco had as far as underachieving receivers. It's a familiar face for Alex. But, of course, you have Dwayne Bowles, and then, of course, you have Charles in the backfield. There's an injury that just happened, though, with tight end Tony Moiaki. Am I pronouncing his name right, Moiaki?
Moiaki.
Oh, I'm sorry, Moiaki. I'm sorry for hashing that up. How big of an injury is that for the Kansas City offense?
I think it's a fairly significant injury just because Moiaki is a good player, and he's had injury concerns. So Moyaki going down, it's sad to say, but it's not altogether too surprising. He had injury concerns when they drafted him out of Iowa, and then he missed all of 2011 with a torn ACL. So he was a solid player. The good news, and he never wants to say that there's good news when a player gets hurt, but the Chiefs picked up Anthony Fasano in free agency. He's a solid addition. He's been working with the first-team offense all throughout camp. And then probably the most impactful player I saw at camp, at least from the rookies, was tight end Travis Kelce, their third-round pick out of the University of Cincinnati. He was an absolute stud during training camp, and there's a lot of buzz about him. Come to this offense, in addition to Tony Moyaki, and all three of those tight ends getting a lot of playing time, not just individually, but they were running sets where they would have three tight ends out on the field, and they would split one of them out as like a wide receiver. So I think it does hurt. I think that they had options and schemes that they wanted to use with all three tight ends out on the field. But the Chiefs have two other tight ends that they're going to use, and obviously it'll change a little bit. I think of what they wanted to do, but it's never a good thing when you lose a player that you counted on for some kind of production.
BJ Kissel, kind enough to join us here on Raider Nation Central Radio on the Bonita Platinum Hotline. BJ, let's talk about head coach Andy Reid. How has he been able to come in there and hopefully change the philosophy and turn Kansas City around?
It's a really great question, and these are a lot of the big storylines going in. And you want to make predictions and things and say, hey, everything seems to be going well because it can't be worse than it was last year, and obviously being the worst team in the NFL, having the number one draft pick. But a lot of what you hear and the things you hear consistently are the kind of the things that you try to pick up on, not something you hear on one individual day, but just a theme that you hear throughout all of the press conferences and all of the times that he's been talking. It seems as though he's much more comfortable now and that he doesn't have as much control, or he's not as involved in the personnel decisions as he was his last few years in Philadelphia. It's something that he said a few times, and I think has kind of led Chiefs fans to be comfortable with where he's at and that he's getting back to his teaching role. I can't remember where I heard it the other day, but there was some report that on the radio that was talking about how he just feels more comfortable being a teacher of football and not necessarily a guy having to make personnel decisions and deal with contracts and free agents and all of those things, where now he's working with the general manager, John Dorsey, who came over from Green Bay, where they had spent some time together years ago, and they've still kept in touch, and they have a great relationship. So I think that Andy Reid getting back to just teaching football has been a good thing for him. I think it's kind of rejuvenated him. He's excited running around camp, and all the reports I've heard are that the guys like him, that they like the up-tempo practices that they've had, and that they got a lot of work done. I was standing there when Tom Balvey came over to the press conferences after one of the practices, and Tom doesn't talk to the media a whole lot, but one of the things that he said that was different this year from in years past is that there was no standing around. The guys were always doing something. They were going from one drill to another. Everything was very organized. They were getting a lot done. The players liked practices. They were at 8:15 in the morning. They were done by 10:45. Signed autographs about 11, and then they were done for the day and had some walkthroughs and watched tape the rest of the day. So the players liked that schedule. I'm not going out in the heat in Kansas, up in St. Joe where they had camp. So it seems to be all positive now.
BJ, got just about another minute or two left. With the offense, let's talk about the fuel that makes that fire go, and that would be running back Jamal Charles, one of the best in the league when he can stay healthy. He had that scare earlier on in camp a week or two ago with the foot pain that went up his leg. Do you think he can be counted on for 16 weeks?
It depends how they use him. That's a great question. And that I think that day I was on Twitter, and I wasn't at camp that day. I was actually at camp the day before. And I think I saw all the Chiefs fans that I follow on Twitter and Chiefs people in general just literally start freaking out on Twitter. It was the most amazing, just immediately all of a sudden the timeline starts going crazy, and it's like, oh, something bad happened at camp. It's going crazy like that. And, yeah, that's a huge scare because so much of our offense is dependent upon Jamal Charles. And I don't think he's a guy that can touch the ball 20, 25 times a game and stay healthy throughout the course of 16 weeks. hasn't really done that. And there were times, even last year, we never went on IR, but there were times he came out of games because you could see him limping or holding his shoulder and taking a beating. So I think for Jamal Charles and Andy Reid's offense, you can see him catch the ball more out of the backfield. But, with mid-round pick Niall Davis from Arkansas coming in, looks to be a guy who's going to be sharing carries with Jamal Charles. He's had injury concerns in his past. He's also had fumbling issues his last year at Arkansas. So obviously Jamal Charles is what's going to make the offense go. And if he goes down, it doesn't look good for the Chiefs offense, but it's probably true for a lot of teams out there that are dependent upon a running game. But this offense will go as far as Jamal Charles takes it, and the offense is what I'm really interested in seeing how they do. I'm confident the defense is gonna do pretty well next week.
BJ Kissel, kind enough to join us on the Bonita Platinum Hotline. Hey, BJ, one more question before we wrap it here. Predictions in the AFC West. Where do you see the Chiefs winding up, and who's going to fall into where in the division?
You guys put me on the spot. Falling into the Oakland Raiders.
Hey,
I say you can't. I would love to sit here and tell you that as somebody who grew up in Kansas City going to all the Chiefs games, I would love to sit here and try to remain unbiased and tell you that I think the Chiefs have a chance to win the division. But the truth is there's a Hall of Fame quarterback about 700 miles west of here. And the division goes as far as Peyton Manning goes. So if Peyton Manning has a great year, I don't think there's any way that the Broncos can't win the division. The NFL is just too important. The quarterback position is just too vital in the NFL right now. When you've got a top 5, top 3, top 10, whatever you want to call them, if you want to have that debate, quarterback of all time, who seems to still be somewhat in his prime, there's no way you can't count the Broncos as the favorites. And if he stays healthy and plays an entire season like we've seen from him, the Broncos are probably going to win the division. But I don't have any hesitation saying the Chiefs are going to be right there fighting for the second position. I've predicted anywhere between 7 to 9 wins for them. I think they have a pretty favorable schedule. Most of their division games are in the second half of the year, so they'll have a chance to gel with obviously new offensive system, new defensive system. As long as they can stay healthy and losing Tony Moeaki, that looks so good right now. But as long as they can remain healthy with their top key guys going in the second half of the year, I like their chances.
And then, so who brings up the rear?
I think Oakland is going to bring up the rear. I don't think San Diego is going to be very good. And I say that as I lived in San Diego for the past 3.5 years before my wife and I just moved back to Kansas City. But San Diego's got some issues, and Oakland still seems to be in a rebuild. I think that they're moving in the right direction. I think that they're doing the things they have to do, and you kind of have to suck it up and have a year or two like that for Dennis Allen and Reggie McKenzie to kind of do what they want to do with it, because they kind of inherited a mess. But I think they're going in the right direction. I just don't think there's going to be a whole lot of positives for them this season.
That is BJ Kissel. Thanks for being on the show. BJ, you were right in line with what Ayre Bedinger said with the writer for the Broncos and Bleacher Report. Same order: Broncos, Chiefs, Chargers, and Oakland. So I guess we'll see how the season will fare out. But, that seems to be the sentiment right now, that the Broncos will definitely win the AFC West. Hey, thanks for being on.
As soon as the Raiders win a few games at the beginning, you guys will probably call me back to have me on. So I'll look forward to that.
Well, we'll definitely do that when the Chiefs play the Raiders, for sure.
Sounds good.
You better believe it. Thanks for being on, BJ.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Football fans, looking to get healthy this year? Now is the time, and I have the perfect place for you. Save 10% at onit.com/football radio. Exclusive PFC radio listeners save 10% off their order. That's onit.com, ONNIT.com/football radio.
Welcome back to this segment of Raider Nation Central Radio on Pro Football Central. This segment brought to you by Bonita Platinum. We have our next guest on from the San Diego Chargers, Kyle Posey. Kyle, how you doing today?
I'm good, man. How are you guys doing?
Good. Welcome to the show, man. B Nation, Bolts from Blue. So welcome to the show, man.
How you doing?
Good. Preseason right now for the San Diego Chargers, 1-2 on the preseason. You got Phillip Rivers trying to right the ship here. New head coach in Mike McCoy. What is the sentiment in San Diego right now going into the regular season?
Well, I mean, at this point, it's just he's preaching that he just wants to get better. He wants to find the right 53. He just wants to build off, last year. I know the goal is to make the playoffs. I don't know, with the way the depth is right now, I don't know how achievable that is. But, I mean, that's definitely what they're striving for right now. There's some talent, just not a lot of depth there.
So, yeah, so you're saying not a lot of depth. Of course, you have Malcolm Floyd coming back as one of the receivers. And then, of course, Ryan Matthews, question mark, is he going to have a great season? Now, Ken Wisenhunt being the offensive coordinator, do you see the San Diego Chargers moving the ball as swiftly as they have in Chargers teams past?
I mean, I don't know if it's going to be the 2007, 2006 days where they were, putting up points, averaging 28, 27 a game. But, I mean, just these last game against the Cardinals, they showed a lot of improvements. It's a new system, so it's not the 7-step drop that Rivers is used to doing. It's the step, 5-step, get it out of your hands, let the skilled players do it. And, just last game, like I said, he had what I believe it was an 80-yard touchdown drive. He had a 92-yard touchdown drive, so 14, 12-play touchdown drive. So, I mean, they're definitely starting to move the ball and pick up the offense. Rivers showed a lot of improvements last game. So I can see it happening. And Ryan Matthews looks like a totally different player right now. I don't know what got into him in the offseason, what they told him to, but he knows. I think he knows if he doesn't get it done this year that this is it.
That's the voice of Kyle Posey. You can find his work on boltsfromtheblue.com. Kyle, in terms of the quarterback position, Phillip Rivers, ride or die with him for a lot of the last few years. Do you think he can get over the hump and lead a team to the promised land and deep into the playoffs?
No, I mean, they have the schedule to do it. If that's what it comes down to, they do have a favorable schedule. Rivers is still Rivers, like I said, new offense, so it's just a matter of him picking up the offense. He's already shown a lot of strides from week 1 to week 3. It's just as long as he can, continue to improve, I think, the Chargers do actually have a strong chance to make the playoffs. I guess I won't say strong, but they have a chance. It's certainly not out of question, especially in the week conference of the AFC. I mean,
so
he threw for 27 touchdowns last year, and people were calling for his head. So, I mean, if that's the kind of year that people are calling for your head, I'm sure he can get better this year.
Which of the three big areas, offense, defense, or special teams, appears to be the biggest, weakest link for the Chargers entering the 2013 season?
Well, I mean, if preseason is any indication, special teams has been a nightmare so far. I mean, aside from last game they had Keenan Allen took a 44-yard punt return. They blocked the kick, blocked the punt, but the games before that it's been very sloppy. The kick coverage has been a mess. Punt team, I mean, the whole coverage team has been pretty shaky. So I'd be very worried about the special teams more than anything. And I guess offense, you want to throw in offense too, because everyone knows about the San Diego line. The line's been leaky. They're still trying to work out the kinks. So the offensive line's right up there with special teams for sure.
Kyle Posey with SB Nation, boltsfromtheblue.com. Hey, we're going to put you on the spot right here, man. You had mentioned playoffs a little bit with San Diego if they can do a couple of things right. What's your prediction for the AFC West? Where do you see San Diego, and where do you see the other teams falling into place?
Well, I mean, everybody knows about Denver and Peyton Manning, and even with Von Miller out those 6 games, Denver's tough to beat. That offense is going to put up a lot of points. So I think Denver has first place pretty much locked up. But after that, I think it's up in the air. People are quick to anoint the Chiefs, but I'm not sold on Alex Smith. In my opinion, he's kind of Captain Checkdown. I don't think he's looking to push the ball down the field. So I think that really opens up the door for the Chargers. And I know this is a Raiders time right now, but you guys, man, I wasn't sure what the whole acquisition of Matt Flynn was over. I thought for a while that Terrell Pryor was the best quarterback on the team. And I mean, as gifted as an athlete as Terrell Pryor is, when he's the best quarterback on the team, that's probably not a good sign for your team. So,
right.
I do like what Reggie McKenzie's doing though with that team. I think he's leading them in the right direction. Obviously, the loss of who was the left tackle, Veldevere.
Yes.
Yep, that's huge, man, because he's a player. He's actually really good. But I'm not sold on the Raiders. I don't see that offense being able to put enough points up for them to win. And that brings us back with the Chargers. Like I said, it's basically there's going to be a lot of pressure on Rivers to perform this year. The offense is basically predicated on him making the right reads. So if he's able to make those reads and keep the offense moving and keep the defense from having to play a lot of possessions like they had to do last year, then the Chargers do have a legitimate chance to make the playoffs. So I think they're going to be right in between 7 to 9 wins. It just it's hard to put exactly amount of wins on there because there's a lot of luck involved in these close games.
Sure.
Kyle Posey writing for boltsfromtheblue.com on the San Diego Chargers. Thanks so much for your insight and joining us here on Raider Nation Central on Pro Football Central on the Bonita Tequila Hotline. We look forward to having you on during the season when the Chargers and the Raiders do battle.
Yep, thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for having me.
Cigar fans, check out fifthdowncigar.com and enter the coupon code PFC to get 10% off your order. Lots of nice high-end cigars. That's fifthdowncigar.com. Enter the code PFC for 10% off your order.
Welcome back to Raider Nation Central Radio on Pro Football Central. It has been an exciting show talking about the AFC West. Had some great writers in. We had Ayre Bedinger from the Bleacher Report. We also had BJ Kissel from the Bleacher Report as well, both of them from Denver and Kansas City, and Kyle Posey from SB Nation, boltsfromtheblue.com. Sean Wally, the three came in, talked about the AFC West. It sounds like the sentiment is Denver all the way and winning the AFC West.
Yeah, it's hard not to go that route at all when, they're led by Peyton Manning and they have a really good defense even without Von Miller for the first 4 games due to suspension. And it was good to get insight on what's going on with those teams and where they think they will fall. And unfortunately for Raider Nation, everybody has the Raiders in 4th place.
Yes, and so the sentiment is this. It is Denver winning the AFC West and the Oakland Raiders bringing up the rear. But not to fear, Raider Nation, there is no way in the world that I would allow this prediction to end up the way it is. We have not given our prediction. And for Raider Nation, I can tell you that the sentiment is the same. I believe that the Denver Broncos will win the AFC West. The question is who will bring up 2nd, 3rd, and 4th? And that remains to be seen. I just want to give you one quick note, Raider Nation, as these predictions come out year in and year out, and it seems that Oakland is put in last place since 2010. And I want you guys to jot this down. Since 2010, the Raiders versus the Chiefs, the Raiders are 5-1 over the Chiefs. Against the Denver Broncos since 2010, the Raiders are tied 3-3. Against the San Diego Chargers since 2010, the Raiders are tied at 3-3. Year in, year out, people put the Oakland Raiders dead last at the bottom of the division. I can tell you this, when it comes to playing within their division, there is none other and there's none better than the Oakland Raiders as far as getting up off of the mat. When you look at 3-3 with 2 teams and 5-1 against the Kansas City Chiefs, the Raiders definitely have a chance to do something in the AFC West. Now, I would be remiss if I said that the Oakland Raiders would win the AFC West because, again, I don't believe that that's the case. But when you look at competition and you look within the division, and as Kyle Posey said, it's lucky from here. There's a little bit of luck that plays into play. 2nd, 3rd, and 4th isn't out of the possibilities for any of the remaining teams. Sean Waller, we got a game coming up this week. Why don't you tell us a little bit about it and what's going on?
Well, you just heard the passion and knowledge from Sean Boyd, one half of the Double S Express here on Raider Nation Central Radio. And that's right, the 4th game of the preseason, the Raiders travel north for their yearly final tune-up for the regular season in Seattle. Raiders taking on the Seahawks. Still jobs up for grabs. Terrell Pryor getting the start. So we will see if he can latch on to the reins and guide this Raider team.
Yeah, so this is what you wanted, Raider Nation. You wanted Terrell Pryor as your quarterback. You get him, and he will be starting this Thursday. And so it's going to be interesting to see how Terrell Pryor comes out and plays, if he can actually take the reins of this team, like you said, Sean Wally, and take it someplace. I myself think that it's far greater than the issues on the Oakland Raiders are far greater than just the quarterback. There are some big holes on the offensive line that need to be fixed, and it won't be until they fix those that we won't know who will be the quarterback that can lead the Oakland Raiders into victory.
That is the voice of Sean Boyd coming to you from the Hawaiian Islands. I'm Sean Wally in Eastern Washington. This is Raider Nation Central Radio on ProFootballCentral.com. Follow us at Raiders PFC, as Raider Nation Central has been brought to you by Bonita Tequila.
That's right. And so we have another week coming up next week, and hopefully we'll have some good news as the Raiders take on the Seattle Seahawks. For the Double S Express, I'm Sean Boyd, and for Sean Wally, we'll see you next week.
This has been a presentation of the Pro Football Central Network. For news, blogs, highlights, and more, log on to ProFootballCentral.com.